This is the Ford Escort Cosworth Drive-Thru. So if you're looking at this and you're like, what is this weird boxy 90s hatchback doing in the car club? We get a lot to talk about. Rally, obviously massive in Europe, getting more massive here, but 80s, 90s rally in Europe was one of the pinnacles of motorsport. You have Formula One on one side on road racing, and then off-road racing, which had derivatives in road cars you could buy, was happening in rally. The Group B racing was the unlimited stuff that just got banned for being too fast and too powerful and too damaging or too dangerous. And then came along Group A to fill the spot. So this was Europe's answer to the Group A rally in the 90s. And it's a Ford that was never sold in the US. So I think it's pretty cool when we come across these American cars or cars by American manufacturers that we never had here. So when you build a car for racing, you have to have a homologation car. That's the actual production car with enough common components between the race cars that you can say the race car is based on a production car. At that point, FIA required you to have 2,500 homologation car examples, and they later raised it to 5,000. And a lot of times those cars are these rare one-offs where they just make enough for homologation. In road racing around then, and a little earlier, it was 500 cars. So you have these really rare cars, there's only 500 of in the world. This car was actually pretty popular and sold pretty well. So they made 7,000 examples worldwide, but only about 30 made it to the US, as far as we know so far. More will come, but 30 made it to the US over the past couple decades. This car was brought in by a company called Sun International that was actually importing them in the 90s. So pretty rare to have a car like this that was been here in the US since it was almost new. The rest of the cars like this are subject to the 25-year rule. So if they weren't brought in then, you can't bring them in until they're 25 years old. And it makes it even more exceptional to see a car like this in the road. All that said, it's not just here for its rarity. We love the story behind it and the quirky uncommonness of it, but it's a great car to drive, and it was a lot of fantastic tech and kind of motorsport engineering in it for the time. So this has, the Cosworth name comes from the Cosworth built Ford four-cylinder motor in it. That is a pretty serious bit of kit. This is the later small turbo car, which is nothing to get upset about. The smaller turbo means it spools a bit quicker and you get that power band a bit lower. Maybe not as much power at the top end, in base form, comparing like for like, but you get a lot more usable power. So if you want one that can actually get out and drive on the road, this is the one to have. Small turbo cars, it also has air conditioning that works amazingly, and this came from the factory with the 280 horsepower pack. So 1995 all-wheel drive rally car with 280 horsepower, pretty solid. That's the Subarus that came along later were 300 horsepower, and that's kind of the benchmark for like the next 10 years. So to deliver 280 in the 90s in a car that's probably lighter, this thing's quick. We'll get in and see what it's like to drive and get all those impressions, but I'm excited. So we're inside the Escort Cosworth. Really nostalgic, full 90s interior, this kind of puffy steering wheel. It's great. And getting out on the road here, I gotta say it's a lot tighter than I remember anything I drove in the 90s. You have this kind of funny upright position, suits the quirky hatchback style, but it just all feels right and tight. Brakes feel good, and when you go running through the gears, you hear the turbo spooling up. As you come off the throttle, you hear that little whistle from the blow-off valve. This is all great 90s kind of rally tech at your fingertips, and it's a blast and kind of really great on these little twisties around Harriman State Park here. a great little blast there. I had to stop talking for a minute and actually just take in the driving, but it does everything you want to do. And you think of the age of this car and the kind of level of performance and modern feel and the kind of sure-footedness of the chassis. It's really impressive. I mean, there's no wonder why these cars brought on such a passionate following from the European rally car crowd, especially all those in Europe that had access to buy one. I mean, this must have been the car to have for those guys, and it deserves it. I mean, here we are now, 31 years later, and fully enjoying this driving experience. I drove up here in a Ferrari 458. I'm getting in a 1995 Ford Escort, and I love it. There's nothing about this car that's overshadowed by the fact that it spent an hour in a Ferrari. Definitely one you want to get on your list and get out and drive. Unique experience that you're not going to find many other places around the U.S. for sure. So get in touch, book it, find a nice road, get out and drive.